Okay, we're going to talk more about Nietzsche quotes. Okay, so Nietzsche believes in the Superman, the Superwoman, to be the best human that you can be. And so Nietzsche is also known as the bad boy of philosophy. They say that really philosophy ends with Nietzsche. He's the last one. Because once he's talked about the ideas that he's talked about, there's no need to discuss anything more. Okay, because once you put all the values and you have to reevaluate all of them, you come to the same conclusions that Nietzsche comes to. So I want to quote Ayn Rand, or Ayn Rand, however you say her name. I want to quote her because she has a reverence for a quote that he says, but she didn't like how he actually had used it. And Nietzsche would be okay with that. Nietzsche is about the pupil stepping on beyond their teacher. He says, one of Nietzsche's quotes was, how unjust it is if you always remain a pupil. And so I wrote this Philosophy with a Hammer Freedom School blog, which essentially just kind of puts all of his quotes together. And I'm going to get back to this, but I want to actually talk about the Beyond Good and Evil, and I want to talk about the Ayn Rand's sort of take on the quote that he had said. Before I do that, though, I'm going to talk about just real fast two great ideas. That's what Nietzsche would want, right? The best ideas. In the great pool of ideas, the best ideas should prevail. So there's, the state legislature of Frankfurt is going to discuss Somerset's decision to buy a gas station. So that is the free market, right? So the mayor of Somerset didn't like all the price gouging that was happening, and so therefore he bought a gas station, and he has been fighting the gas cost in the city. He says that they were gas gouging, or they're price gouging, so they're hiking the rates up on everybody, and he got sick of it. So the government, I know the government in Grant County had bought the internet. They had got a grant, and they have fiber optics. So I don't think this is a bad idea. And in fact, out of the Young Turks, Ian Doriello, I don't know, one of the guys on the Young Turks, he had actually he said that this was socialism, which I disagree with. I think socialism is more about the means of production being owned by the working classes, where you own your own thing. But he's saying that when the government, if it is working for the working classes, then therefore this would be socialistic, because this is, the government intervening. Now, the government is just one player, just one chip in the pile of chips. It's just one corporation competing with all the other ones. So the government bought a gas station. I think it's a good idea. In fact, the government, local governments it would be in the best interest that they bought a lot of these sort of necessities that American people need. Not just gas stations, but internet, water. Water is usually owned by the government. The sewage system is owned by the government. So water, sewage, electric, these are not bad ideas. These are really great ideas. And so if we believe in the free market, well, let's see how the government does. Supposedly they're the worst things in the world, and so they're going to talk about this in state legislature, but frankly, it's a good idea. How do you stop these private companies from price gouging? They all get together and say, hey, we're going to screw the American people over. Well, this mayor in Somerset will say, no, you're not. I'm going to go ahead and buy a gas station, and we're going to have competitive rates, and we're going to keep your prices down. And if you don't have the same rates that we do, then you're going to lose out. And, that's amazing. That's incredible. I think is a really good idea. Another thing, this is something that Germany is doing, but they have a lot of great solar powers. They have like 25% or something crazy. Like every house, like 90% of the houses have solar power, and they get 25% of the energy from solar power. There's a American solar company has developed technology that can produce super efficient solar power that's cheaper than fossil fuels. Rayton Solar's new solar panel manufacturing technology uses 50 to 100 times less silicone than other technologies, cutting out large amounts of the most costly component of solar panels. The company says its patent-pending process uses just 4 microns worth of silicone, leaving no waste, while boosting efficiency to 24%. That's 25% higher than the industrial standard efficiency, according to the company. Rayton claims that their patent-pending solar PV modules can be manufactured in the United States at a cost of 60% less than the industrial average, which is based on prices from places like China, where the majority of solar panels are made. So that's another great thing. That's another great thing that's happening. The sun is where we get all life, right? You get light, you get energy, and then that's how we're able to, see all the life that has came out of the earth. The plants, the animals, every bit of it's came out of the sun. And so, really fuck religion, right, on such an incredible scale. Actually, I saw a great quote by Ricky Gervais. He had said that Christians are just as atheistic as he is, because he thinks there's the 2,700 gods that the people of the earth believe. He doesn't believe in the 2,700 gods, but Christians don't believe in 2,699 of the gods. So therefore, they're just as atheistic as he is. Okay, so there's and the reason why I mention that is because the sun, George Carlin says it makes sense to worship the sun. We should worship it. Why would we not? Because it's something we could see, and it's something that gives life. Why would you not worship the sun and the earth and, things that you can actually see and things that you can praise? All right, now we're going to go to Ayn Rand is all about basically the same thing. A lot of the similar things about man being the best that he can be. Now, she says that this quote that she took out from Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil, was in defense of psychological determinism. And psychological determinism was sort of, you cannot blame a person from coming out of the culture and society that they came out of. Psychological determinism was saying, well, your parents, the society, the working places, the schools, they all told this person how to be. And so therefore, that is what the person is going to be. That's how they're going to be molded. But that's not the case. You could get beyond that. Beyond Good and Evil is sort of him saying we need to have a reevaluation of morals. And so he says instead of good and evil, he actually wants to differentiate between noble and despicable. Okay, so somebody who is a traitor to their own soul is despicable. Somebody who is a superhuman, someone who has an ego, is somebody who is good. I remember this one woman had told me that I had no ego. You don't have an ego, so you're wonderful. You're perfect. Perfect to be managed and perfect to be manipulated. You're perfect. She did not give a shit about me. She couldn't empathize with me, and it was a very frustrating experience. So let me read the quote is, the noble soul has reverence for itself. The noble soul loves itself. Okay? So let's read this. What is noble? What does the word noble still mean for us nowadays? How does the noble man betray himself? How is he recognized under this heavy, overcast sky of the commencing plebeianism by which everything is rendered opaque and leaden? Is it not his actions which establish his claim? Actions are always ambiguous, always inscrutable. Neither is it his works. One finds nowadays among artists and scholars plenty of those who betray by their works that a profound longing for nobleness impels them. But this very need of nobleness is radically different from the needs of the noble soul itself, and is in fact the eloquent and dangerous sign of the lack thereof. It is not the works, but the belief which is here decisive and determines the order of rank. To employ once more an old religious formula with a new and deeper meaning, it is some fundamental certainty which a noble soul has about itself, something which is not to be sought, is not to be found, and perhaps also is not to be lost. The noble soul has reverence for itself. She's going to take that as sort of a poetic thing and then go beyond, go beyond what it is Nietzsche had wanted. And that's exactly what Nietzsche says. How disrespectful it would be for the pupil to always need the teacher, to always have someone holding that hand, when it is actually that hand that is keeping you from, achieving what it is the greatness of yourself. So there are men who are unavoidably intellectual that let them turn and twist themselves as they will and hold their hands before their treacherous eyes as though the hand were not a betrayer. It always comes out at last that they have something which they hide, namely intellect. Now, I can remember this actually in my youth, in my childhood. I did really well on my test and with all the, things that the school teachers threw at me. I did very well, made straight A's. And I always felt, though, embarrassed about it because my colleagues, my peers were not as good. They weren't as smart. They couldn't, comprehend like sort of basic logical phrases and, basic logical things. And it was really frustrating because here to be part of a community where intellect is valued, where scientific progress is valued, these make sense. All we have is logic and reason. And if we cannot be a part of a society, it's almost like there was that TV show, the Weakest Link. When it got to be like the last 2 or 3 people, they always voted out the smartest guy, not because they didn't respect their intellect, but because they knew that the final round they would have to go against that intelligent person, and they didn't want to actually go against someone who is superior than themselves. So one of the subtlest means of deceiving, at least as long as possible, and of successfully representing oneself to be stupider than one really is, which in everyday life is often as desirable as an umbrella, is called enthusiasm, including what belongs to it, for instance, virtue. For as Galliano said, who is obliged to know it? Virtu est enthusiasmi. In the writings of a recluse, one always hears something of an echo in the wilderness, something of the murmuring tones and timid vigilance of solitude. In his strongest words, even in his cry for himself, there sounds a new and more dangerous kind of silence, of concealment. He who has sat day and night from years in to years in, alone with his soul is familiar, with the soul in familiar discord and discourse. He who has become a cave bearer, a treasure seeker, a treasure guardian and dragon in his cave, may be a labyrinth, but can also be a gold mine. His ideas themselves eventually acquire a twilight color of their own and an odor, as much of the depth as of the mold, something uncommunicative and repulsive which blows chilly upon every passerby. The recluse does not believe that a philosopher, supposing that a philosopher has always in the first place been a recluse, ever expressed his actual and ultimate opinions in books, or not books written precisely to hide what is in us. Indeed, he will doubt whether a philosopher can have ultimate and actual opinions at all, whether behind every cave in him there is not and must necessarily be a still deeper cave, an ampler, stranger, richer world beyond the surface, an abyss behind every bottom, beneath every foundation. Every philosophy is a foreground philosophy. This is a recluse's verdict. There is something arbitrary in the fact that the philosopher came to a stand here, took a retrospect, and looked around, that he here laid his spade aside and did not dig any deeper. There is also something suspicious in it. Every philosophy also conceals a philosophy. Every opinion is also a lurking place. Every word is also a mask. Every deep thinker is more afraid of being understood than of being misunderstood. The latter perhaps wounds his vanity, but the former wounds his heart, his sympathy, which always says, ah, why would you also have as hard a time of it as I have? I like, actually, this is all Nietzsche quotes, right? So a man, a complex, mendacious, artful, and inscrutable animal, uncanny to the other animals by his artifice and sagacity, rather than by his strength, has invented the good conscience in order finally to enjoy his soul as something simple. And the whole of morality is a long, audacious falsification, by virtue of which generally enjoyment at the sight of the soul becomes possible. From this point of view, there is perhaps much more in the conception of art than is generally believed. A philosopher, that is a man who constantly experiences, hears, sees, suspects, hopes, and dreams extraordinary things, who is struck by his own thoughts as if they came from the outside, from above and below, as a species of events and lightning flashes peculiar to him, who is perhaps himself a storm pregnant with new lightnings, a portentous man around whom there is always rumbling and mumbling and gaping and something uncanny going on. A philosopher, alas, a being who often runs away from himself, is often afraid of himself, but whose curiosity always makes him come to himself again. A man who says, I like that, I take it for my own, and mean to guard it and protect it from everyone. A man who can conduct a case, carry out a resolution, remain true to an opinion, keep hold of a woman, punish and overthrow insolence. A man who has his indignation and his sword, to whom the weak, the suffering, the oppressed, and even the animals willingly submit and naturally belong. In short, a man who is a master by nature. When such a man has sympathy, well, that sympathy has value. But of what account is the sympathy of those who suffer, or of those who even preach sympathy? There is nowadays throughout almost the whole of Europe a sickly irritability and sensitiveness towards pain, and also repulsive irrestrainableness in complaining and effeminizing, which with the aid of religion and philosophical nonsense seek to deck itself as something superior. There's a regular cult of suffering. The unmanliness of that which is called sympathy by such groups of visionaries is always, I believe, the first thing that strikes the eye. One must resolutely and radically taboo this latest form of bad taste. And finally, I wish people to put the good amulet. All right. So that's the phrase that she takes out of all that was, the noble soul has reverence for itself. And so Nietzsche is basically, I mean, he just keeps, I don't know, I feel like he's kind of going in circles a little bit. He's just saying philosophy, the philosophers, there's something deeper, check it out. And, you know, if you have a philosophy, you're a good man, you want to keep it and you want to hide it and you don't want anybody to know about it, but you want everybody to know about it. And Max Planck, he's got a great quote where he says that the scientific progress doesn't require that you convince your opponents of its prowess. Scientific progress happens when the when the opponents die out, and then the people who are familiar with the work carry it forward. And who carried Max Planck's work forward? That was Albert Einstein. So, you know, the scientific progress, the great thing about science is it doesn't matter if you believe it to be true or not. If you were to discard all the scientific progress that we had and we just started rediscovering, you know, basic physics and gravity and sort of those things, it would still come to be the same conclusions that we had already came from. So that's why we have like these scientific revolutions. Just recently we had the birth of the transistor day. You know, I have the holidays for the revolutionary humanist, and scientific progress is really where it's at. That's what, you know, that's the best that man can do with the earth, with the five senses, with the observation and experimentation, with the scientific process, right? I have a hypothesis. I tested that hypothesis. Now I have to reject the hypothesis or keep it. And I do it through experimentation and observation. So this view of man has rarely been expressed in human history. So this is a quote, you know, she's taken from The Noble Soul Has Reverence for Itself. She takes it to mean something different. This is Ayn Rand. This view of man has rarely been expressed in human history. Today, it is virtually non-existent. Yet this is the view with which, in various degrees of longing, wistfulness, passion, and agonized confusion, the best of mankind's youth start out in life. It is not even a view for most of them, but a foggy, groping, undefined sense made of raw pain and incommunicable happiness. It is a sense of enormous expectation, the sense that one's life is important, that great achievements are within one's capacity, and that great things lie ahead. It is not in the nature of man, nor of any living entity, to start out by giving up, by spitting in one's own face and damning existence. That requires a process of corruption, whose rapidity differs from man to man. Some give up at the first touch of pressure. Some sell out. Some run down by imperceptible degrees and lose their fire, never knowing when or how they lost it. Then all these vanish in the vast swamp of their elders, who tell them persistently that maturity consists of abandoning one's mind, security of abandoning one's values, practicality of losing self-esteem. Yet a few hold on and move on, knowing that the fire is not to be betrayed, learning how to give it shape, purpose, and reality. But whatever their future, at the dawn of their lives, men seek a noble vision of man's nature and of life's potential. There are very few guideposts to find. The fountainhead is one of them. This is one of the cardinal reasons of the fountainhead's lasting appeal. It is confirmation of the spirit of youth, proclaiming man's glory, show how much it is possible. It does not matter that only a few in each generation will grasp and achieve the full reality of man's proper stature, and that the rest will betray it. It is those few that move the world and give life its meaning, and it is those few that I've always sought to address. The rest are no concern of mine. It is not me or the fountainhead that they will betray. It is their own souls. Ayn Rand, Introduction to the Fountainhead. And so that's absolutely amazing. It makes me think about like some of the ideas that I've been sort of bouncing around in my head, and now I just feel like I have to go for it. I have to go for the great. I have to go for the best. And I have a good idea about media. I have a good business idea about media. I have lots of good manuscripts and possible Hollywood movies, and I also have an idea for a school. I have like really great ideas, and I need to see them happen and put into fruition. In fact, I almost want to make the next video about my ideas about school. You know, what I did with my ideas, the Freedom School, the whole thing about the Freedom School was that it, fuck the totalitarian fascism that you see in public school. Fuck that shit. They want 100% compliance. That's all they give a shit. 100% compliance. That's fucking fascism. You do as the fuck as I say or I'll put violence upon you. Fuck you. That's fascism. And that's how the Nazis got away with their shit, was blind obedience to arbitrary and absolute authority. Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. So, well, what do you gotta, you can tear down a society. Well, you gotta have something to put into its place. So I analyzed all these different alternative schools, and I come up with about a list of 10, 11 different ones that I really enjoyed. And they all had different things that I liked about them, and I melded them all together. And so I had this fucking badass school that is just waiting to be born. And it almost makes me wonder, like everybody, see, this is Ayn Rand. This is a woman who wrote this. So it's not that, when we say man's greatness, it's just men that can do it. But it seems like in tradition, because men have to achieve and have to be somebody, that they are more driven to go do it. Whereas women can, find a virtue in sort of just being pleasant to be around and beautiful. And they can get a house and they can get land. They can get a whole bunch of stuff just for being, not great or whatever. Not great. But throw tradition out, throw tradition out. I still think that there's, women are getting decent jobs and that more women are going to college. So therefore I worry about the boys. I worry about the men. And there's a lot to be worried about, with the men, just because, I think it's absolute bullshit. Say if my feelings were hurt, who do I go talk to? You think some man's going to give a shit about me? No. And if women don't give a shit, then I don't have anybody. Whereas women kind of have each other to console. Men do not. And I am generalizing. So, of course, with every generalization, there's going to be something different. But I do dream of a boys' town. A boys' town like Father Flanagan's Boys' Town, where you actually, develop young, intellectual boys to be smart, intellectual men to achieve the greatest that is within themselves. And I wouldn't want to segregate, and I wouldn't want the, I'm not just about the boys. Don't get me wrong. I think that the women or the girls would be welcome to come too. It's just that it's a man's society. It's a man's world. And because it's a man's world, it's like the women are trying to act like men. But a woman cannot handle a man the way, the only way she can handle a man is if she has a man that's behind her. And that's possible. She can have that. And so, that's just sort of a feat of strength, right? That might is right. And I don't particularly agree with that. And the great pool of ideas, the best ideas should prevail. And so therefore, it's just that, like, I don't know, a fascist says, hey, do this or I'm gonna fucking hit you. Well, I'm gonna hit you back. Well, shit, what do you mean by that? That means if you're gonna try to fucking put violence on me, I'm gonna put violence back on you. You fucking cowardly piece of shit, And so, to a man like that would be acceptable. I don't know where I'm going with all this. I don't want to get into the gender wars. Because I feel as though if actually men were sensitive, if men did care about one another, then they could use their manhood in defense of that which is good, instead of sort of being a bunch of psychopathic, militaristic, fucking fascist freaks. Okay, in some respects, some effeminizing is good. Some sort of, for them to care and to have emotions and to have morality. I think these are good things. But that's not to say that, all women are like that either. So, when we generalize, we're going to trip over a lot of different weird things. But the the general point is we can become better than ourselves. We can, or not better than ourselves, better. We can become supermen. We can become super women. And I do dream of a boys' town because it does seem like the boys are being left, out in the cold, out in the dust. And that frustrates me a whole bunch. My school would have democracy. It would have democratic forms, and it would have, the best ideas being discussed. It would value scientific achievement. And there's a lot of great things that, the school that I want to design, and it's the freedom school, right? So, and so I guess, I don't know, I can understand my struggle more than others. It seems as though, women love women and men love women and nobody gives a fuck about a man. And that's just bullshit. That's absolutely bullshit. If the men are the ones who's going to be the movers and shakers of the world, then they need to be, properly educated and properly treated just like anybody else. And to leave them out in the cold, I think. And so this isn't an attack on women. This is a defense of men, defense of mankind, of the ability to want to achieve. And so if women want to achieve, if women want, that I'm not against that. I'm actually very much for that. I would never go back to before feminism, where women have to sort of just, be a housewife and there's domestic violence and the rapes and nobody gives a shit, about them. I would not go back to that. I just am seeing, with the teacher training school, when the education field is 80 to 90% women, the women, if they are treating the boys like they treat their husband, right, treating them like shit, rolling their eyes, acting like they ain't shit, and yelling at them because they have more energy. Boys have more energy. Women are more, girls are more like quiet and just ready to listen, to do whatever you want them to do. This is just my experience of St. Joseph's first graders, that the girls were more like docile and the boys were running around. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with boys running around. I just think that a man can, keep up with that energy, instead of saying, hey, you got ADHD and you need to shut your mouth or I'm going to get the principal in here to, smash your face in. No, the boys are just, they got more energy, so you just got to keep up with them. And if you can't keep up with them, that is not their fault, that's your fault. And so, so where there seems to be a place for women in society, and if women become more leaders, then they need to come up with an idea of where men are going to be in society. And if they can't come up with that idea, then men will have to carve out their own niche. And so this very much just kind of going with my personal struggles. My generalization feels absolutely right. Nobody, if my feelings are hurt, who the fuck is going to give a shit about me? Who's going to validate my life and my experience and says, hey, you're okay? If I just go around smiling and being sweet and everybody going to just kiss my ass? No, that will not happen. And so I got to be tough. I got to be strong, and I got to get into this, field of men and sort of shine myself and make my own place in the world. So sort of like what Ayn Rand is talking about is where the majority of the people will not realize the greatness that is within them. They will not, actualize themselves into the great men or women. They will not become ubermensch. They will not become supermen. They will not become superwomen. They will be, mediocre, and they will be happy in their mediocrity. I just was actually speaking to a woman who says, hey, don't think too much. Am I supposed to stop thinking? I'm supposed to stop thinking. Oh, okay, just not going to think no more. Fuck that. I'm not going to stop thinking. And what kind of philosophy would tell somebody that thinking is something wrong? How do you can't stop thinking. So actually a person who pretends that they stop thinking, I don't know. You got some weird ass mental illness that's going on in your head. So those are the kind of small points. So the supermen, to be supermen. And actually I love these videos. These videos get for me to express myself, to get to self-actualization, instead of just sort of always being a pupil for the rest of my life. I feel like I'm taking off for myself. I'm starting to fly in my own, if you want a bird to fly, you don't want to just try to keep power over them and telling them what to do and shit. When they're ready to take off, you let them fly, you let them go. And that's exactly how we're supposed to be. What kind of bird would we be if we hated our wings? What kind of, cheetah would we be if we hated the speed that we could run? What kind of bear would we be if we hated our strength? So these, the best things about men and mankind, humankind, we need to, value that in us. So the strength, the strongness, the ideas, the scientific progress, these are all good things. These are good things, and these are good things that we should actually go forward. And there's actually something else Nietzsche said, how people listen to symbolism more than they actually do, like arguments and reason. So I have reason behind me, and some reason my arguments are falling on deaf ears. So perhaps I need to have more sort of displays, sort of more like, hey, look at me, I'm a great man. I know how to do this thing. And so maybe that's what people will listen to, is sort of, let's see what the quote is actually. Fanatics are picturesque, and mankind would rather see gestures than listen to reasons. So they like gestures more than they like reasons. Oh, well, he did that thing, so therefore, they're picturesque. They want the show. They want the theater. Mitch McConnell can do the theater while fucking everybody else over. It's almost as if like governance and the theater, the political theater, are completely two different things. He smiles to us. He says he's for farmers. He's for the people. He's for everybody. Good man. Has a creepy fucking smile. And Kentuckian says, yes, that is my man. That is my guy. Yeah, he's been in there for 36 fucking years. He's gonna fuck the Social Security. So frankly, I hope I'm tired of fucking paying these old ass motherfuckers on sitting on their asses in their Social Security and shit, taking my tax dollars. You want to sit there and fucking cut, poor people out of the fucking loop just because you hate black people? And actually, I don't want to see that happen, but frankly, you're making your own bed. You're going to sit there and just, the chickens can only vote for Colonel Sanders so many times before Colonel Sanders actually chops the head of the chicken off. And like Elizabeth Warren says, that if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're probably on the menu. And we, the people, the American people, are on the menu. Wall Street, Citibank, they get what the fuck they want. They always get a seat at the table. Working class people, poor people, homeless, they don't get any fucking say-so whatsoever. So I'm going to come back to some more of the quotes. I really did like the Ayn Rand saying, and so that actually kind of sparked that I wanted to do the video. But I want to finish out all these different quotes because Nietzsche just kind of goes through a whole array of ideas that I think are wonderful and phenomenal. But generally, I mean, it's the will to power is normal. That's a human thing. People want to have power over each other. And so what that leads me to believe is that you got to be around people who can check you. Nah, fuck off. I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. That is the right and proper response to somebody saying, hey, pick up that pencil. Nah, go fuck yourself. That is the right response. And, because you can't say go fuck yourself, you have to be like, I don't really want to. Well, you're going to do it. Well, that's how Hitler was able to control people, was through the spoken word. You're going to do it, you're going to do it, you're going to do it, and you harass and you harass and you harass until eventually you get somebody to do what it is you want them to do. The will to power is good. The will to power is right. And it's very human. It's all too human, right? And so I think because of the will to power, I don't want to be a master. I don't want to be a slave. I don't want to have to tell and govern people to do what they want to do. I see an army of individuals. I see individuals who can do whatever they want to do, and they do it strongly, and they don't back down, and they're not afraid of fascists that want to get in their face. They're ready to resist and stand up for themselves, and also to be, governed in their own capacity. So I don't believe that the will to power, the power is not a bad thing. In by itself, because with power you can achieve lots of great things, right? You can plant a flower. It takes labor. It takes labor to plant plants, right? So power by itself isn't bad. It's power used for bad, outcomes. So that's the two biggest ideas: is that we can be supermen and superwomen, and that we can also, we have a will to power. So interpret that how you want to, because I used to question power for like the longest time, and I was like, power is the problem. Hierarchy is the problem. When someone tells you what to do, that divides the relationship, and that says, hey, that severs the relationship. You cannot be friends. I even seen one of my friends go up to two kids who are sitting there talking to each other, and he goes, if y'all don't stop talking, I'm going to separate you two. He's going to fucking kill the relationship right then and there. He's going to fucking sever the ties that was actually making them. They could have been best friends forever, but now, because authority figure came in and severed that fucking ties, well, if that friendship, if that love was actually strong enough, they would tell the fastest asshole to go fuck themselves, right? And people can negotiate really whatever they want to negotiate. So if one person does want to be submissive, I don't want that. I'd rather have a person that I can talk to and intellectually respect. But if somebody just want to just kiss my butt all the time, it's going to be hard to deny something like that, right? And so if there's I'll kiss your butt if you give me the house and the land and everything else. All right, I can understand that. So really, both of those ideas are in play for me. But I would prefer the woman I could talk to and respect on an intellectual level, someone who values intellectual achievement and scientific progress versus the one who is just into superstition and is a fucking acts like a little baby girl, is a fake baby girl, like a person who sits there and is shitty to their kids and is an asshole and then turns around and pretends to give a smile to you. It's all bullshit. You're a fucking mark. You're the patsy. They want to try to trick you to get your love and then take all your fucking love and energy and just run with it. Aha, I got you. And so yeah, that's where we're at right now. So coming back up, more Nietzsche quotes. I'm gonna finish this up.